Hello and welcome to Cheshire Astronomy. I'm going to set up a remote VPN connection to allow me to connect to my ASIAIR or any other Wi-Fi enabled device whilst I'm away from home. Now, this is because you can guarantee the nights that when I work away and stay overnight in hotels are the nights where we have a clear sky at home. It's just typical. It always happens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take you through how to set up a Raspberry Pi with the software in order to get started on the project. I'm going to take you through how to install and set up the VPN part of the software. If you don't know if you've got the right version, or if you don't know how to set up a Raspberry Pi from the beginning, then I'm going to take you through it in this video. Okay, so I'm just going to very quickly explain how Twingate works and what it is. So we have got our, in this instance, we've got our iPad, okay? And unfortunately, I am working away from home, so I am connected to a hotel's Wi-Fi. Okay. At home, we have got a clear night, and there are plenty of stars about. Unfortunately, my telescope is at home, but does have an ASIAIR connected, which talks to my home Wi-Fi. Now, what we need to do is connect the iPad somehow to my home Wi-Fi. Now, I could be hundreds of miles away. So we are going to use a little bit of software, and it's called Twingate. And what Twingate does is it links any Wi-Fi connection that you're connected to your home Wi-Fi connection. So then when my iPad goes to look for my ASIAIR, Twingate, and in this case I'm going to use a Raspberry Pi 4, my Twingate, so when I connect to my ASIAIR, my tablet will find the Twingate software, and that will tell it where I live and will connect it to my home Wi-Fi. And then from there, that will then route it out to my telescope. It sounds complicated, but as a user, it is extremely simple. The IT side of it, the technicalities of it, the encryptions, yes, they can be quite complicated to explain, so we don't need to. All you need to know is, as long as my tablet or my mobile phone has got access to any Wi-Fi connection, I can remotely control my telescope. And that is the camera, the imaging, the filter, the automatic focus, the orientation if you've got a camera adjuster. Everything you can do with an ASIAIR while you're working at home, you can do whilst you're away from home if we use Twingate. In a nutshell, that's what it does. So let's have a look at how this is set up. There are two stages we're going to look at. First one is set up the Pi, and two, set up Twingate, Twingate. That's it, 2 steps. So let's go and have a look at setting up the Raspberry Pi. In order to be able to do this, you need to have a Raspberry Pi. You need to have a home Wi-Fi connection. Now, what I'm going to do is I've got a Raspberry Pi and I'm going to reinstall everything from the beginning. So what I have is a SD card with a micro SD in the back. That's what the Raspberry Pi would need. And I've got a card reader here. These are relatively cheap, a couple of pounds. Well, what it means is I can plug this into my computer and I can access that SD card. So you need one of them, or you need some way to access it. If you've got a laptop, you might find that you already have a card reader built into the side of the laptop, so you may not need one of these, but this just makes it a little bit easier sometimes. The second thing you're going to need is a Raspberry Pi. And then the third thing you're going to need is the software to put on the Raspberry Pi to get it started. So if we go over to the browser, I can show you the software that I'm using. Okay, so on the Raspberry Pi website, if you go to software, you've got this Raspberry Pi manager. So we're going to download this. What this will allow us to do is choose the device, the operating system we want to put on it, and there's a few other options that are included in there that we can get it to connect to Wi-Fi automatically and open up a few applications once the Raspberry Pi is booted. So we don't actually have to put a monitor on the Raspberry Pi if we don't want to. We can set it up so it kind of self-boots and connects. But sometimes it doesn't always work and you have to plug in a monitor just to get through the setup. But we'll have a go. So we're going to download this software, and I've just done that one. But I'm going to ignore it. So you'd go through the setup anyway, as you would do any other bit of software you're installing. So if I now search for Raspberry Pi imager, launch. So you can get a new imager. I'm going to say no for this, purely for the speed of the video. So I've got a Raspberry Pi 4, and we are going to choose that H drive, which is the USB card reader, it with the SD card in it. Go to next. Now, would you like to apply custom settings? Yes, we do. So for this is obviously, remember the settings that I've been playing around with previously. So the host name of it is going to be Twingate. So that's what it'll be called on the network, so I can find it. I'm going to give it a username for the benefit of this, it's going to be Astro. And just while I'm typing in the password, I'm going to stop recording. Okay, so I've got a password in there. This is the Wi-Fi extender that is going to connect to, which is accessible from outside the house. Put the password in, and we're going to get it to enable SSH. That means we can run commands to it over the network, and then that's it. So there we go. So I'm going to click save and say yes. To apply the settings, yes, it's going to erase that SD card, so that's fine. And then that's it. We will now allow it to write the Raspberry Pi operating system to the SD card, and then we'll come back to it. Okay, so once that's finished imaging to the SD card, what we now need to go and do is put that SD card into the Raspberry Pi and to get it to boot up. So if you go onto your router, you should be able to find out what IP address your Raspberry Pi has been given once it connects to the network. However, I'm going to connect a monitor to it so I can run it from a command prompt, and I can check that everything is working correctly and it's got internet activity. So that's the next step. Just going to put the SD card in, let's get it started, and then we can then move on to the next stage, which is setting up the Twingate software. That's the bit of magic that will give you access to your ASIAIR or any other device whilst you are away from your property. Let's go and put it in and let's get it started. Okay, so I'm going to set my Raspberry Pi installing. This is my Raspberry Pi 4. It's got a built-in keyboard, so I don't need to have an external keyboard. I'm going to plug a mouse into it as well. And it's got an old SD card in there, so I'm going to put the SD card into the back of the Raspberry Pi, if I put it the right way around. One way it'll go in, and it takes me 3 attempts. It's typical. I'm going to plug in my external monitor, and then I'm going to plug in my USB-C power lead. And then that is then going to start booting. So if I turn my screen on, hopefully I should see the Raspberry Pi boot menu. What I am going to do, I'm going to plug in a USB mouse as well, just to make it a little bit easier. Okay, so it looks like it's booting. That's good. And yes, that has now started the boot sequence. So this is going to go through, it's going to get the Pi up and running, and hopefully it's going to use those configuration settings that I set at the beginning, my Wi-Fi and a username and password. And there we have it. We have a desktop. Now, because of the screen that I'm using, it's not the best screen. The menu's kind of outside the perimeters of the screen. I don't know why it does that, but it is just an old monitor that I'm using. So I'm going to try and see if I can change the resolution. Let's change it to 800 by 600, see what that does. Yes, that's fine. If I just plugged it in and expected it to automatically connect, I could have been sitting there for a while. But yeah, it's not automatically connected. So it could be that I typoed the password maybe. But so let's get it connected to my home Wi-Fi. Okay, so that's now connected. So you can see I click on the Wi-Fi signal at the top of the screen and then go down to advanced options and then connection information. You can see that my IP address there is 192.168.1.42. So that's what we are now going to use from my desktop computer to remote onto the Raspberry Pi. And the reason why I'm going to use my main computer for this is because it's a faster machine and I've got a bigger screen, so it's easier to show you what I'm doing. We go to Raspberry Pi configuration. What we can do is we can turn on VNC. Now what VNC will do is that will give us a remote desktop, so we can actually remote into the Raspberry Pi and use the keyboard and mouse rather than having to do it all by command line remotely. So we'll let that reboot and we'll just make sure that it gets the right IP address again and the same one. And then we'll go over to the desktop and have a look and see if we can remote control onto it. So it's got 1.42 again. So that's exactly what we want. So let's go to the desktop. Okay, so I'm going to open up a command line. So I'm going to click at the bottom and type CMD for command. And I'm going to do a ping. This just checks to see if the computer can see the Raspberry Pi. 1.42. So it can see it. Your address will probably be different, but mine's 1.42. So, okay, so I've got VNC running and I've connected to my Raspberry Pi. I'm not going to show you how to go through VNC. There's plenty of tutorials out there, but I've just got the free light version and it doesn't cost me anything. And I just add the IP address in, type in the password, and I connect it. So if I went to my Raspberry Pi now and looked at the screen, I could see that the mouse was moving around the screen because I'm basically sat in front of it, but I'm in front of my main computer, so I've got a bigger screen. So what we now need to do, we now to install the software that we're going to use. And the software we're going to use is Twingate. So what I want to do is I want to go to the twingate.com website. I click try for free. So I now need to give this an email address. Then I'm going to click at home and then we'll get started. So you can give it a name so it's easy to remember and then click go to okay. Now I'm going to sign in with a user account. So I'm going to sign in with my Gmail account. Okay, so what we now need to do is add a resource. Now, a resource is something that you want to connect to. So here is my ASIAIR in this example. So if I get my command prompt open and I do ping ASIAIR, it comes back as 1.225. So that's my ASIAIR's IP address. So what I could do is I could go into here and add that IP address. So we will say we're going to say that it's a server. It is Linux based, but we'll say that it's a server. And we'll give it that web address of 192.168.1.225. Just check that that's right. 225, yep. Create resource. Okay, so that's told it what we want to connect to. Now we're looking at the deployment method. So how do we get this onto the Raspberry Pi? And what we're going to use is we're going to do a Linux installation. Scroll down to here. So this says it's going to create the connectors that require outbound access. It'll provide access to the resources. Don't worry too much about that. So we need to generate tokens so that they can talk to each other securely. So I'm going to blank this out, but we're going to generate our tokens. So I've copied my tokens to a text document just so I've got them somewhere safe. Better safe than sorry. So what we're going to do now is we've got this command line down here. Starts with curl. We need to run that on the Raspberry Pi. So I'm going to copy the command. And we're going to go back to the VNC. Now you could do all this on the Raspberry Pi, but I'm just doing it this way because I've just got a bigger screen, that's all. So I'm going to paste that command as it goes in, and I'm going to hit return. Now what this will do, this will now go and bring that software from the internet for Twingate, and it'll install it. So we'll come back once it's finished. Okay, that didn't take very long at all. And I know it's finished because I come back down to this prompt here to show me that it's finished running the command. So that's now installed, hopefully, and configured everything. So we come back to the Twingate page and we do continue. We need to decide how or what we're going to use to connect to the ASIAIR. Now, I can't use a Windows machine for this because it just doesn't work. There are ways around it, but I'm not going to do it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to download the software onto my iPad, which is what I do normally use when I'm using my ASIAIR. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to go to the Apple Store and I'm going to download Twingate from there. So I'm going to do search. I'm going to search for Twingate. And it's that one with the two black icons. Now, because my iPad's a bit old, it's saying that there's a newer version, but I can't have it. So that might be an excuse for me to buy a new iPad, I think. So we're going to open it. And we're going to join the network. So this is the name that we gave it a few moments ago. I want to allow VPN connections because that's how it's going to connect. Okay, now it's asking me to sign in. So this is my Gmail account that I used. Okay. So that has now found my resource, which is my ASIAIR. Now, what I need to do, I now need to connect my iPad to a different Wi-Fi connection that's not my home one because it won't work, or if it works, it's not true. So I need to test this by pretending I'm away from home. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to connect my iPad to a hotspot, and then I'll test it again. So if I change my Wi-Fi to my mobile one, this uses 4G. So as far as my iPad is now concerned, I'm away from home. I'm out and about. So if I now go to my ASIAIR, and there you go. It has now found my ASIAIR, and I can browse this as though I was at home, which I am technically. But as far as my iPad's concerned, I could be anywhere at all, and I've got access to my ASIAIR, which means that I can do everything that I normally can do. So I can delete pictures, I can take pictures, I can set up, I can go to the guide, I can get it to move. So everything that you can do on your ASIAIR, I can now do when I'm away from home, which is just brilliant. And it's secure as well. So that's the important thing, is it is secure. As long as I can connect my iPad through a Wi-Fi connection somewhere else, it will not work on 4G. It has to use Wi-Fi. And that's not because of Twingate. That is because the ASIAIR only accepts connections to its local IP address in that way. So the way that it works is it's looking for a local network, a Wi-Fi connection, basically. So you need to connect your iPad up to a Wi-Fi connection or tether it to your phone. And once you're connected, you've got full access to it. And it's just brilliant. And it just works. And you've just seen how easy it is to set up. And it just works that way. I'm going to be testing this. As I say, I do like to test these things myself. I've got an app on my phone to automatically open the roof. So the ASIAIR, unfortunately, still doesn't have that feature to be able to access, electronic roofs. But anyway, I can remote control my roof. I can open it. I've got a camera in there so I can see when it's open. And now I can actually use the ASIAIR. I can do the automatic focusing. I can spin the telescope round, change the filters, whatever I want to do, I can now do whilst I'm away from home. And then when I'm finished, I just park it, turn everything off, close the roof, and I'm happy. So I really, really hope that video was clear enough and simple enough for you to follow. Please leave a comment below if you're having issues with it, or if you've got another solution that I can look at. But to me, the Twingate option is probably one of the simplest and easiest things you can set up. Now, what you could also do, if you had other devices at home that you wanted to secure, that you want to connect to via Wi-Fi, such as a NAS, and you don't want to open up all the ports up via your router, you could add it to Twingate as well. So you've got access to, if you've got a desktop computer at home that you want to be able to remote control into quite easily without having to open ports and everything, again, you could use Twingate to do that. So please like and subscribe. Help me grow this channel. This is a new one for me. I closed my old one down because I kind of got a bit bored of astrophotography. I went through a phase of boredom because of the weather. I'm regrowing this channel, so please help me get to 1,000 subscribers I want to get there by spring. Give me a boost. Give me a thumbs up on the video if you liked it. Like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next video.